Hello everybody, glad you could be with me again today. We're now going to be reading episode 8 of the Blue Pendant, book 1 of the Sackville Hotel trilogy. So episode 8 is entitled Bill's Demise. Monsieur Blaine, the porridge, Chef yelled. How you English say, lumpé? The fabricated French accent sounded ridiculous, and Bill wondered why Chef couldn't speak normally. In no mood to placate Chef's eccentricities, Bill grabbed the oversized wooden spoon and thrust it into the thick, lumpy porridge. Anger pulsated through his hand, and the porridge bounced and plunged in deep craters like molten lava. He dug the spoon in deeper, twisted it and slammed it on the side of the pot. He swore under his breath at Chef, all the time knowing that Chef was not the source of his anger. He was afraid to admit the true source. Anna and Alex were in love. Alex had done it again, scooped the one woman he loved right from under his nose, and he had let it happen. He spooned the too thick but now lumpless porridge into bowls for the staff breakfast. A soft, lilting tune floated into the passage as he carried the tray into the staff dining hall. He'd never heard Anna sing, and his anger vanished into the softness of her voice. He watched as she set the table. Her face glowed, her eyes smiled. She looked up, her curls more wayward than usual. The glow disappeared and her eyes changed as she stared at Bill. Did he detect sadness or guilt? He couldn't be sure, but now he was certain something had happened between them, and they were afraid to tell him. He didn't need words. He knew Anna had accepted Alex's proposal. The pain stabbed his heart. He almost dropped the tray and steadied himself on the Welsh dresser. The hurt and betrayal devastating. Alex told you? Anna said. No, it's obvious. I saw it in your face. He stared at her through a bubble, his vision distorted by tears. Unable to verbalize the words out loud, he allowed them to ramble in his head. How could you do this to me? I loved you and trusted you. I gave you time and waited patiently. I thought you were courting Sophie, Anna said, pouting in a way that Bill had not seen since those early days. Alex was going to drown. I had to say yes. Alex tricked you? Bill's breath caught in his throat. I have to go. A crying kitchen maid flew past Bill as he entered the kitchen. Chef was bellowing something about kippers. I can't take this any more, thought Bill. I'm going mad. He took one look at Chef, daring him to continue his abusive words. Chef scoffed, but said nothing. Bill didn't join the staff for breakfast, but went outside to smoke a woodbine. He sucked the cigarette hard and blew the smoke into smoke rings and watched them float into nothingness, wondering where he had gone wrong. He had given her the space and time she'd asked for, expecting her to change her mind about marriage, which she had done, but not with him. The fool that he was, he had pushed her into Alex's arms and welcomed Sophie's friendship. He couldn't deny his mistake, and he wanted to make Anna jealous. He dropped his cigarette, stamped on it, and twisted it into the gravel, imagining Alex's head, or Anna's. No, not his precious Anna. His own stupid head for being such a fool, sitting on the very bench where he had first comforted Anna. He put his elbows on his knees, covered his face, and wept. Hearing the back door open, he wiped his face on his apron and took a deep breath. Mrs. Banks approached the bench. Mr. Blaine, whatever is the matter with you? You look ill." She placed the back of her hand on his forehead. "You have a fever." "No, I'm fine." His voice was thick and nasal. He could feel the puffiness in his eyes and heat from his flushed face. Bill had not cried so hard since he was 10 years old, when he fell out of the treehouse, breaking his arm. He remembered being embarrassed then, and now he was mortified. "To your bed, Mr. Blaine. I don't want the staff coming down with fever. You need rest and fluids. I will send some honey and lemon up shortly." About to protest, Bill realized Mrs. Banks had given him the perfect excuse to explain away his current condition, and a day in bed without Chef yelling at him sounded inviting. Mrs. Banks, fearful that Bill's fever would spread through the staff quarters, had confined Bill to his room without visitors. She'd even moved his roommate to another room. He welcomed the solitude, allowing him to wallow in his grief. He mulled over the idea of leaving Bexhill. In spite of Chef's yelling, he was the best. Finding another apprenticeship equal to this one at the Sackville would be difficult. Enlisting in the cavalry might be an option. His experience with horses and riding would bode well. And, he thought, that would make Grandad very proud. He smiled at the fond memories of playing toy soldier games with the old man. And he was reminded of his grandfather's courage and bravery. What would Grandad tell me to do? The words came to him as if the old man was standing next to him. Never retreat. Face your enemy and fight for what you believe in. Never retreat, he thought. Running away was Bill's weakness. Even with toy soldiers he would retreat, hence Grandad's words. Face the enemy. Who was the enemy, he wondered? His best friend or the woman he loved? He could fight neither Alex nor Anna. Could he fight for his country? Enlisting, he thought, would still be running away, and he needed to face the consequences of losing Anna. I will never stop loving Anna, and although it might take a while to forgive Alex, I must try, Bill thought. He wasn't the kind of person to seek revenge, and he should do the right thing and wish them well. This last thought stabbed at his heart. Would it ever stop hurting? He pulled the cover over his head just as the bedroom door opened, and in came Mrs. Banks with a glass of hot lemon and a headache powder. How are you feeling, Mr. Blaine? Bill sat up quickly. Much better, thank you. I think the fever has gone. Mrs. Banks placed the back of her hand on his forehead. You feel hot. Bill felt vulnerable with the thermometer sticking out of his mouth. Mrs. Banks fussed about tucking the covers and fluffing the pillows. After 5 minutes she removed the thermometer and frowned. I'm surprised. Your temperature is normal, but you don't look well. I will check you again in the morning. Chef will have to manage without you for a day or two. Now take these powders and drink the lemon while it is hot, and rest. She gave Bill a quizzical look. You know, I thought Mr. Walker or Miss Neal would be the ones to catch a chill from the soaking they got on Saturday. Bill winced at the mere mention of their names, but felt it wise to keep quiet. Mrs. Banks didn't miss a thing, and he wondered how much she knew or deduced from the activities of the last 2 days. Bill woke the next morning feeling more like himself. Mrs. Banks brought him breakfast and was relieved he had no temperature, but insisted he stay in bed. A knock on the door startled him from his thoughts. Yes, Bill called. The door opened slowly, and Sophie's head peered around. I hope you're decent. I've brought you lunch. Sophie, it's so nice to see you. Mrs. Banks must have decided I'm not going to infect the hotel, he said, laughing. Come and talk to me. I'm getting bored. Bill fiddled with the buttons on his nightshirt and pulled the covers up. It was highly irregular for a woman to be on the men's side of the hallway, let alone in his room. Sophie sat on the chair, her hand clasped on her lap, as though she was taking tea in the drawing-room. He'd never really noticed how her dark ebony hair shimmered, so different from Anna's golden brown curls. "You are looking quite well, but sad," Sophie said, looking down at her hands. "Did you hear the news about Anna and Alex?" Bill felt the now familiar jab in his heart. "Yes, it's good news." "It must have been a shock, the proposal and all being so sudden." "No, I think I saw it coming. Anyway, I have my beautiful chess player, and I think I would like to get to know her a little better." Bill gave her a wink, the same wink he used to give Anna. "So what's been happening while I've been imprisoned in my room?" "The hotel is quiet, but everyone is busy as the stable boy and another bellboy have enlisted. And did you know Mr. Lytton has a commission in the cavalry? He leaves on Saturday. Anna tells me Mr. Pickles is furious, and Alex is afraid to tell him that he too has enlisted. He goes for his medical next week, and then he has to wait for his papers before he can start training." "Yes, he told me he was going to Cooden Camp on Friday. We have a new guest, Mr. Darcy Thornton, Lady Thornton's son. Anna says he's weird, friendly with the staff, but quite rude to his mother. He has a lady joining him next week. Lady Thornton doesn't approve. She's a modern lady and a suffragette." Sophie giggled as she picked up the now empty tray. "And," she continued, heading towards the door, "Miss Barclay told Anna that she's an American. Isn't that exciting?" Bill resumed his duties on Tuesday morning, and as might be expected, Chef deliberately made his life difficult. Punishment for taking 2 days off. Bill took the yelling and abuse in his stride and coped by throwing himself into his work. He even managed to act normally around Anna, although the yearning inside him took some hiding. He hadn't seen much of Alex and suspected he was avoiding him. Chef had been impossible all day. Bill felt on edge. He had burnt the caramelized onions and overcooked Sir Walter's steak. He needed solitude, and finally dinner was served. He managed to sneak out for a smoke. The only light in the courtyard came from the kitchen window, shining directly on the bench, making everything else as black as a rabbit hole. The voice came from the dark. "May I join you?" Bill's heart missed a beat. "Who's there?" His eyes strained. First he saw the orange glow, and then he smelled a cigar, which preceded the outline of a tall, slim gentleman. "Forgive me. Name's Darcy Thornton. I was enjoying the evening air when I saw you exit from the back door." Bill immediately stood up. "Good evening, sir. May I attend to something for you?" Bill felt awkward. It was unusual for a guest to approach the staff in this way. "Perhaps you took a wrong turn, sir. This is the service entrance." "No wrong turn, just curious. Are you the chef? I must say the food is fabulous here." "No, sir. I'm apprentice to Chef Louis." "Well then, I expect you do all the work. I will compliment you anyway." "Thank you, sir. Would you like something now, sir?" Bill frowned. "No, I enjoyed a robust dinner tonight. The steak was perfectly succulent." Sir Walter apparently was displeased and complained loudly. "Yes, sir. I'm afraid that was my mistake." "Rubbish. Sir Walter has a temper. Probably displeased with his ugly wife." The conversation being inappropriate, Bill thought it best to make his excuses and return to the kitchen. "Excuse me, sir. I have duties to attend to in the kitchen." "Of course. What's your name?" "Blaine, sir. Bill Blaine." "Well, Bill Blaine, I hope we meet again." Bill nodded. "Yes, sir." What a strange encounter, Bill thought, as he walked into the kitchen. He remembered his mother teaching him that everyone, no matter what his or her status, deserved respect. Was this gentleman treating him respectfully? Servants and gentry should know their place and understand the consequences if they cross the line. Although they had been a happy family, Bill knew his mother had paid the price of crossing the line by marrying the stable manager. Yet Mr. Thornton had different airs, superficial, and Bill considered his motives to be questionable. Saturday afternoon, Bill and Sophie planned to go to the cinema. There was an awkward moment when they met Alex and Anna unexpectedly in the hall. Sophie assumed they were all going to the cinema as usual. Bill tugged at her sleeve as a reminder that things were different now. "We're catching the omnibus to Eastbourne to do some shopping," Anna said, grinning from ear to ear. Bill guessed they were going to buy an engagement ring and quickly guided Sophie towards the door. "Come, Sophie, we'll miss the start." By the time Anna and Alex returned, Bill and Sophie were into a game of chess. Sophie teased Bill as she took his king. Bill concentrated hard, but Anna's giggles distracted him, and Sophie won the game. "Sophie, would you excuse me? I would like to speak to Bill alone," Alex said with an uncharacteristic serious look on his face. "I believe Anna has gone to her quarters. You might like to join her. She has something to show you." Alex looked towards Sophie but avoided Bill. Sophie squeezed Bill's hand and left the room. "Alex, you don't owe me an explanation. We are grown men," Bill said calmly, but was thinking, "I don't want this conversation. Alex is supposed to be my best friend, and yet he stole my girl. I want to forgive him, but how can I?" "Bill, you are my best friend, and I want you to be the first to know. Anna and I are officially engaged. We bought the ring today." Alex beamed for a second until he saw Bill's anger pulsating in his temples. "I know you are angry. I wouldn't expect anything else. I tried not to fall in love with her. I thought you loved her too. But when you started courting Sophie, I thought it was fair game to court Anna. And then it just happened. If it makes you feel better, she turned me down several times. You tricked her, Alex. Always the dramatic, threatening to drown so she would say yes. That's bizarre behavior even for you. She had turned me down, saying she didn't want to get married, so I let her have some time. Sophie is a friend, a chess partner. I might have known you would interpret our friendship as courting. It served your purpose. And mine, Bill thought, feeling guilty for betraying Sophie. I should have known better. You've done this before, but this time I told you hands off. You knew how much Anna meant to me. I can't find a way to forgive you, and that makes it worse, because now I have lost my best friend. Bill, I am sorry. I cannot imagine not having your friendship. I need you, and so does Anna. I enlisted in the army last week. I'm waiting for my papers to start training, and Anna will need a friend. Let's shake hands. We've had differences before, but always managed to come to an agreement. Not this time. I can't believe you still want me to pick up after you. You decided to enlist and leave Anna alone. Well, not this time. I won't be there. I can't. It hurts too much. You'll get over it. You can court Sophie. She likes you. I'm through, Alex. I hope you and Anna have a happy life. Bill's forehead was running with sweat. The anger bubbled to bursting point as he pounded up the stairs. Sophie stood at the top of the stairs, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, and her brown eyes full of love and caring. Bill felt his anger dissipate, and suddenly he wanted her comfort and understanding. He was afraid to speak, and walked by her, but Sophie followed him. Sophie, stop! This is the men's quarters. Then they heard Mrs. Banks's door open, and they both froze. Mr. Blaine, Miss Romano, may I suggest you finish your conversation in the staff dining hall and let the rest of us retire peacefully. Mrs. Banks closed her bedroom door, making no reference to the fact that Sophie was standing well inside the men's quarters. Bill poked the fire in the staff dining hall and placed a few pieces of coal on top of the still glowing embers. They, mostly Bill, talked late into the night. Sophie listened and comforted him until he felt more like his old self. Back in his room, Bill was painfully aware that he had decisions to make. Would he have to leave Bexhill? Leave the work he had strived for? Leave Anna? And mourn the loss of his best friend? He didn't want to leave. When Alex left for the army, life would be easier. But Anna would be vulnerable, and that would put him in a compromising situation. Life at the Sackville went on as usual. More staff enlisted or took on lucrative positions in factories. Untrained and often unsuitable replacements took over. Things were not as efficient, but they managed. Bill watched Anna smile and show off her sapphire ring. She ignored him, and there were awkward moments when they met and avoided eye contact. Chef yelled until his ears vibrated. He played chess with Sophie, and they went to the cinema together. She filled a void with her warmth. Perhaps in time their friendship would become love. He sighed, knowing that for as long as Anna drew breath, that wouldn't happen. Bill could not take it any longer and decided to retreat from the Sackville and enlist. He took the omnibus to Eastbourne and requested a spot in the cavalry. His horsemanship held him in good stead, and contingent upon passing the medical on Saturday, he was accepted. Grandad would be proud, he thought, and on this occasion he would forgive the retreat as he headed to battle. Chef Louis roared at Bill for leaving early on Saturday afternoon. Bill took pleasure in ignoring Chef's rants and headed to the doctor's surgery. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and old dust with a pungent overtone of excited males. The worn wooden chairs, all occupied, chafed the wooden chair rail. Those without seats stood cloth cap, trilby or Homburg in hand, talking nervously, while others, pale-faced and anxious, leaned against the faded green wall, staring through the animated crowd. Nearly an hour passed before Bill's name was called. The examination was fast but thorough and finished at Bill's feet. "I'm sorry, son, but I can't pass you with those feet." "What's wrong with my feet?" "Flat as a pancake. No good for marching, and you have a nasty skin infection. I'll give you some salve for that. You wouldn't last a week in the trenches." Astounded, Bill walked along the promenade, clutching the jar of foot ointment, wondering what he had done to deserve such misery. He opened the back door, and Chef's roar that never ceased greeted him. He turned back into the courtyard and lit a woodbine. To his surprise, Mr. Darcy Thornton, legs outstretched, sat on the bench, a cigar hanging from his lips. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blaine. Come join me. You look as though the world is coming to an end." "My world has," Bill said, mostly to himself. "I have lost the woman I love, and the cavalry just turned me down. Flat feet! Can you believe that?" "Have you thought of leaving the Sackville? You could travel to America. I plan to go to Chicago. It's a terribly modern city. Last summer, Belle and I watched a carnival parade down State Street. Everyone wore gay costumes. Rich, poor, it didn't matter. Horses and carriages walked along trolley tracks. There are restaurants and theatres on every street corner. On Randolph Street, there is a restaurant that can seat 500 people at one time. The cake counter alone stretches 20 feet or more. I go there after a night at the theatre. With your culinary talent, you could find a chef's position in any restaurant or hotel." Bill listened intently. Perhaps America would be a way of escaping. The thought excited him, and for a second or two he forgot about Anna and Alex and the Sackville. "It might work for people like you, Mr. Thornton, but it takes money to do those things, and I have none. I dream of travel and adventure, and one day I will go to America." Bill's thoughts turned to sadness about the travel plans he had had in his youth with Alex, and more recently dreams of travelling to India with Anna. On an apprentice's wage, it will take years to save that kind of money. May I suggest you look for a chef's position in another location? If you're interested, I could give you an introduction to the Grand in Eastbourne. And that was all it took. 2 weeks later, the Grand offered Bill the position of head chef. Even though he had not finished his apprenticeship, his reputation and the fact that there was no qualified chefs available won him the position. His annual income would be more than double, allowing him to save for America. Aware that managing a large kitchen in wartime with poorly trained staff and wartime rations would present many challenges, Bill decided he could rise to the challenge and accept the appointment. It would mean long hours, but hard work would fill the emptiness, and maybe he could stop hurting. Mr. Brown, the Grand's general manager, spoke to Bill as an equal, nothing like the mean, pompous, prickly Pickles. An amiable man, Mr. Brown made pleasant conversation, and he gave Bill a tour of the hotel. The more Bill saw, the more excited he became. The kitchen was twice as large as the Sackville's and better equipped. Chef Louis would positively salivate over such a modish kitchen. Speechless, Bill viewed the suite that was to be his accommodation. A lighted fire warmed the sitting room. A green velvet chair stood beside the fireplace. No more freezing in a wind-swept attic. An oak desk stood in front of a large window that overlooked the sea. No sloping ceilings with window alcoves. Even Alex could stand here without stooping. He immediately regretted the reminder. An archway led into an equally well-furnished bedroom. Pure luxury, he thought, but I probably won't spend much time here. I will be a good master and work alongside my staff, quite the opposite of Chef Louis. He planned his exit from the Sackville carefully. He intended to leave on Saturday's noon-hour omnibus to Eastbourne, before anyone realized he had resigned. He had 2 letters to write. The first would be his resignation addressed to Chef Louis. He'd leave it with Chef to notify Mr. Pickles. Bill smiled as he visualized Chef's rant followed by Mr. Pickles' outrage. The second letter would be to Anna and Alex. He knew it was cowardly, but he couldn't face them. Sophie, he thought, deserved an explanation. Under different circumstances, he probably could have returned her love. He would miss her friendship and her chess challenges. The grandfather clock struck 11 o'clock as Bill entered the staff dining room. Sophie at the table, the steam from her tea wafted towards Bill as she blew on it. She smiled. "Hello, Bill, you look as though—" Sophie stopped. She stared at his bag on the floor by the door. "I have something to tell you." Bill saw her eyes moisten. This is going to be hard, he thought. "Sophie, I have resigned. I am leaving Bexhill on the noon omnibus." "Where are you going? Can I come with you?" "It's better that you don't know where I am. You deserve more than I can give you." "At least let me visit. We can play chess or go to the cinema." Bill gently pressed his fingers to her lips and brushed the tears from her cheeks. "Sophie, you are a wonderful friend, and I cherish you, but I cannot love you in the way that you want me to. It is better if we don't see each other again." Bill felt his heart crack as he understood Sophie's hurt, and he hated himself. "I wish things could be different." Bill handed her his chess set. "I want you to have this. You are a good pupil, and you play as well as the best. Find someone deserving of you, and beat the pants off him." She smiled, a weak, tearful smile, and clutched the chess set, with one arm, flinging the other around his neck, kissing him on the cheek and then the lips. Goodbye, Bill Blaine. I will always love you. Now go. He picked up his bags and walked out of the Sackville for what he thought would be the last time. And that brings episode 8 to a conclusion. I certainly hope that you enjoyed it. If you would like to read ahead, the books are available at all of the retailers, Amazon, Kobo, Chapters, in both ebook and paperback. And if you'd like any more information about me, you can go to my website, which is susanajennings.com. So just don't forget that A in the middle, susanajennings.com. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.